My stepdad got my fiancée pregnant. Then I discovered their plan to make me disappear. I thought the affair was the worst part, until I uncovered what they were really hiding. They betrayed me, set me up, and tried to erase me, but I turned the trap on them. I found out my stepdad was sleeping with my fiancée. That should have been the most messed up part of this story, but somehow it wasn't. Because a week later, I discovered something even worse. They were planning something. Something bigger. Something dangerous. And I wasn't just the guy they both betrayed. I was the loose end they needed to get rid of. If I hadn't found that second phone, I probably wouldn't be here to tell this story. If you asked me a year ago who I looked up to most, I probably would have said my stepdad. Tom. Big guy, ex-cop, solid handshake, kind of a loudmouth but funny in a dad joke way. He'd been married to my mom since I was 16, and he treated me all right. He didn't try to be my dad or anything, but he paid for part of my college, taught me how to work on cars, gave me advice about girls. So yeah, I trusted him. I thought he was one of the good ones. Same with Rachel. We were together 3 years. Engaged for 1. I met her through work. We were both in marketing, and things clicked fast. She made me laugh. She remembered my coffee order. She'd send me dumb memes at 2 a.m. She was hot and smart and made me feel like I finally had someone in my corner. We moved in together 6 months after dating. I thought she was it. Then, everything snapped in half. All in one night. I wasn't supposed to come home early. I'd been on a short work trip 2 states over. Left Tuesday, supposed to come back Thursday. But my last meeting got canceled last minute, so I figured I'd surprise Rachel. I didn't tell her. I just got in the car and drove 5 hours straight. I pulled into our apartment around 9:30 p.m. Lights were on. Her car was out front. I smiled to myself. I imagined walking in, her looking up from the couch, surprised, laughing, wrapping her arms around me. Instead, when I opened the front door, I heard music. Soft jazz, candles lit. The couch was empty. And then I heard a voice that stopped me cold. A man's voice. In our bedroom. I froze. My stomach dropped so fast I nearly threw up. I didn't want to believe it, even as I heard it. A laugh. Her voice. Then a moan. Then the creaking of the bed. I don't know how long I stood there in the hallway before my body caught up to what was happening. I walked toward the bedroom like I was sleepwalking. I opened the door. I didn't scream. I didn't punch anyone. I just stood there, staring. Tom. My stepdad. Shirtless. In my bed. With Rachel. And the worst part? Neither of them looked surprised. Rachel gasped, sure, but it was more like, oh no, we got caught. Not, oh God, what are we doing? Tom just stared at me with this blank expression, like he was already thinking of what to say. I didn't say anything. I just turned and walked out. Rachel followed me out a few seconds later, wearing my hoodie. She kept saying my name. Jason, Jason, wait, it wasn't like that. It's not what you think. I laughed. I actually laughed. Not what I think. I saw it. Tom came out behind her, pulling his shirt on. Look, kid, maybe we should just talk. I looked at him like he was a stranger. Don't call me that. Fine, he said. Jason, let's talk. I walked away, got in my car, drove 2 blocks, pulled over, just sat there. You know what's crazy? In that moment, I was hurt. Yeah, but mostly I felt stupid. Stupid for missing the signs. Stupid for trusting people too much. Stupid for thinking I had a normal life. I ended up crashing at a friend's place that night. Didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling. I kept seeing it on loop. Tom, my mom's husband, in my bed, with the woman I was supposed to marry. The next morning, I went back to the apartment to get some of my stuff. Rachel wasn't there. I just wanted to grab my clothes, my laptop, and be gone. But when I was packing, I noticed her purse on the couch. And something inside it buzzed. She had 2 phones. I froze. Rachel only ever had 1 phone. An iPhone. But this one? This was a cheap burner. Old Android. It wasn't even locked. And that's when everything changed. Because this wasn't a phone for selfies or texting friends. This was for something else. Inside were messages. Strange ones. A mix of text and voice memos. Most of the names were saved under random initials. A lot of the messages were in code. I didn't understand half of it. But I screenshotted everything. Every message. Every file. I backed up the phone to my laptop. Then I played one of the voice memos. Tom's voice. Quiet. Cold. She's in. He won't suspect anything. Once the job's done, he won't be a problem. I stared at the screen. Replayed it twice. I wasn't even mad about the cheating anymore. This wasn't about a stupid affair. This was something else. Something planned. I left the apartment with one goal. I was going to find out what the hell they were really doing. And if I was right, I wasn't just heartbroken. I was in danger. I didn't even know what I was looking for at first. I just knew that something was off. The cheating? Yeah, that was already messed up. I was still reeling from that, from the image burned into my head of the two of them in my bed. But that second phone, that changed everything. The voice memo alone made my skin crawl. She's in. He won't suspect anything. Once the job's done, he won't be a problem. That wasn't just some shady sext or flirtation. That sounded like planning, like coordination, like I was a target. So I backed up everything from the phone and took it to the only guy I could trust, my college buddy, Liam. We used to be roommates. Nerdy dude, into crypto and hacking, always fixing people's phones for cash. He was the kind of guy who could bypass a password in 5 minutes just for fun. I drove over to his place that night, still shaking. I handed him the phone, told him I needed everything off it. He gave me a weird look, but didn't ask questions. You in some kind of trouble? Not yet, I said. I think I was about to be. Liam got to work. The phone didn't have a lot on it. Just one app that was basically a disguised file vault. Looked like a calculator. But after an hour of poking, Liam cracked it open. That's when things got real. Inside were folders, labeled things like RC docs, payouts, contacts, and one called closed files. RC. I asked Liam what that might mean. He shrugged. In the contacts folder, there were photos. Blurry surveillance shots, some in parking lots, some in cafes. People I didn't recognize. One of them looked like it was taken at a courthouse. In the payouts folder, there were spreadsheets. Transactions. Names of shell companies. Every payment was marked under different LLCs, most with random names like Vantage Solutions or Meridian East. But the payment trails were shady. All untraceable deposits, weird offshore routes. Definitely money laundering. That's when I started to feel it in my gut. This wasn't some cheating scandal. This wasn't even personal. I was part of something I didn't understand yet. The last folder, closed files, had a single PDF. It was a scanned police case file, dated back 12 years. The title? Missing Person, Case 007-92L. It had pictures. A man in his 40s. Name redacted. Last seen in Kansas. Listed as a known associate of law enforcement. The report mentioned the man had threatened to expose a police corruption network before vanishing. Case marked closed due to lack of evidence. And then something clicked. One of the names in that file, it was familiar. It was Tom's old partner on the force. This guy who vanished? He worked with my stepdad. I felt sick. All this time, I thought Tom was just some washed-up ex-cop with strong opinions about lawn care. But now I was staring at evidence, or at least signs, that he might have been involved in covering up a disappearance. And Rachel, she had the file on her burner phone. Why? Liam didn't even know how to respond. Dude, you need to go to the police. Tom is the police, I said. And that's when Liam said something that gave me chills. Then you really need to watch your back. I left his place with the backup files on a USB and a copy on my laptop, but I couldn't stop thinking about that guy in the missing person file. What if he tried to do what I was doing? What if he started digging and never stopped? And what if that's why he disappeared? And then another thought hit me. What if my dad didn't die the way I was told? My biological dad died when I was 10. Car accident. That's what they said. I was too young to question anything back then. But now my mind was racing. Rachel and Tom knew something. They had this burner phone, this data, these files, and they were acting like it was all normal. They weren't afraid of getting caught. They were confident. Almost arrogant. Which meant they weren't just keeping secrets. They were used to hiding things. The next day, I didn't go to work. I went to my mom's place. She greeted me with a smile, still acting like everything was fine, like her husband didn't just sleep with her future daughter-in-law. I told her I needed to talk. About Tom. At first, she brushed it off. Said he was under a lot of stress lately. Said maybe we could all sit down and talk like adults. I stopped her right there. I asked her about Tom's past. About his time on the force. That's when her face changed. She got quiet. Real quiet. He told me he left because he wanted a slower life, she said. Said the stress wasn't worth it anymore. I asked her if he was ever investigated. Her lips pressed tight. Jason, don't get involved. My stomach turned. So he was. There were rumors, she said. Years ago. About money going missing. About missing evidence. But nothing ever came of it. Internal affairs cleared him. He never talks about it. I left her house feeling like I had just scratched the surface of something rotten. Like I'd peeked behind a curtain and saw wires holding up the whole show. That night, I went back home, to the apartment I used to share with Rachel, and just sat in the dark, trying to figure out what to do next. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. Stop digging. You won't like what you find. I looked around the room, suddenly paranoid. Was someone watching me? I didn't reply. I didn't call anyone. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about a betrayal anymore. It was a setup. And if I kept going down this rabbit hole, I wasn't just going to lose my relationship. I might lose everything. I didn't sleep the night I got that message. Stop digging. You won't like what you find. It was short, cold, just threatening enough to feel real. Not dramatic like in the movies, where the villain calls and whispers something creepy. No, this was scarier because it felt calm, professional, like whoever sent it wasn't bluffing. I sat up until morning trying to think who it could have been. Was it Tom? One of his old contacts? Rachel? That's when I remembered something Rachel said months ago, back when things were still good, or at least when I thought they were. We were watching some dumb crime documentary, and she suddenly made a weird comment. They always make it so dramatic, she said. If I ever wanted someone gone, I wouldn't leave a trail. At the time, I laughed it off. Just a random, edgy thing to say. Now, it hit different. So I decided to confront her. Not like before, not emotional, not yelling. I wanted to see what she'd say when I was calm, when she thought I didn't know everything yet. I texted her and said we needed to talk. She agreed to meet. I picked a public coffee shop where I knew she wouldn't cause a scene. She showed up late, looking perfect. Like nothing happened. Like she didn't destroy our engagement or sleep with the man who helped raise me. Jason, she said, all soft and apologetic. I'm so sorry. I know I screwed up. I nodded. Let her talk. Watched her closely. I didn't mean to fall for him, she said. It just happened. It was stupid, and I hate myself for it. I waited a second, then asked, when did it start? She blinked. What? You and Tom. When did it really start? She hesitated, and that pause told me everything. I leaned in. How long before I met you were you already involved with him? Her eyes changed. No more fake tears. No more innocent voice. I don't know what you think you're doing, she said slowly. But this won't end well for you. I smiled. I'd hit a nerve. So I pushed harder. You were never with me because you loved me, were you? She didn't answer. Just looked away. Like she was bored now. You were sent, I said. Planted. You got close to me because Tom wanted something. My laptop? Something from my dad. That's when she laughed. Quiet. Almost like she felt sorry for me. Jason, you really don't want to do this. I sat back, stunned. Because that was confirmation. She didn't deny anything. She didn't even try. So I asked the one thing I'd been terrified to ask. Did my dad really die in a car accident? That actually got to her. She blinked. Looked at me, full eye contact this time. Then she said, you should talk to your mom. And she stood up. Just like that. Walked out of the cafe. I sat there for 10 minutes staring at my coffee like it was about to explode. My dad died when I was 10. Supposedly fell asleep at the wheel. Single car crash, late at night. I never thought to question it. Why would I? I was a kid. People just accepted it. But now I was staring down the possibility that it wasn't just some accident. That maybe it had something to do with what Tom and Rachel were mixed up in. So I went to the one person I didn't want to go to. My mom. When I got to her house, she could tell something was off right away. I didn't beat around the bush. I just asked her, how did Dad really die? She froze. Her face went pale. She tried to brush it off at first, said something about how it was a long time ago, how it wouldn't help to reopen old wounds. But I pushed. I told her everything. That Rachel and Tom were involved. That they'd been hiding things. That I found evidence that tied Tom to some old corruption cases. That Rachel might have been part of some scheme to get access to something my dad left behind. That's when she broke. She told me she always had doubts about the accident. Said there were rumors at the time that my dad was going to expose something at the bank where he worked. That he'd told her, just days before the crash, that he'd uncovered something ugly involving cops and money trails. Then he was dead. She never pursued it. She was grieving, had a kid to raise, and Tom, well, Tom showed up not long after. Offered support. Helped us through it. I sat there stunned. It felt like my entire life had been quietly built on top of some buried lie. Like everything was a setup. Even me. And then something else clicked. What if they never stopped watching me? What if Tom only ever married my mom to stay close? To see what my dad left behind? That night, I tore apart my apartment. I looked through old files, boxes, anything that might have belonged to my dad. I remembered my mom once gave me his old laptop after college. It was ancient, barely worked, but I kept it. I dug it out of the closet. It took forever to boot up, but eventually, it came to life. There were no obvious files on it. But when I clicked around, I noticed a folder hidden inside a folder inside another folder. It was titled Insurance. Inside it were documents. Password protected. Encrypted. But the titles? Client_list_2009. Holdings_funnel. Collapse_plan_A. Notes_on_transfer_ points. I didn't know what any of it meant. But someone did. And I was starting to understand the real reason Rachel came into my life. It wasn't love. It was legacy. When I tell you I was shaking opening those files, I'm not exaggerating. My dad's old laptop wheezed like it was dying, the fan sounding like a jet engine, but somehow it still ran. The files in that insurance folder were encrypted, every single one, but the names alone were enough to make my skin crawl. This wasn't personal. It was business. Big business. The kind that ruins people. The kind that gets them killed. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't read the files, but I knew someone who might be able to crack them. So I went back to Liam. I didn't even call first. Just showed up at his apartment at 1 a.m. He took one look at me and knew this wasn't about gossip. I gave him the laptop. Told him it was my dad's. Asked if he could get into the files without triggering anything. He nodded slowly. Told me it'd take a few days. I told him not to plug it into the internet. Ever. And then I went home. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, scrolling through the photos I'd pulled from Rachel's burner. That's when I saw something I hadn't noticed before, a photo of Rachel sitting at a cafe. Her back to the camera. But across the table? Tom. And this was before I ever introduced them. The timestamp said it was 2 months before I even met Rachel. 2 months. She wasn't just cheating. She was part of this long before I walked into it. Everything had been a setup. The way she accidentally bumped into me at that work mixer. The way we clicked so fast. She wasn't a con artist. She was a plant. And I was the idiot with a key to something dangerous. Something my dad had hidden before he died. I was angry. Furious. But underneath all that, I was scared. That night, I noticed a black car parked across the street from my building. Running engine. Lights off. Didn't move for hours. I stared at it from my kitchen window. Took photos. I didn't approach. I just waited. It left around 3:30 a.m. No plates. Next morning, I got a call from Liam. He sounded freaked out. Dude, he said. I didn't even open anything yet. Just booted the files offline. And I think someone's watching my place. I asked what he meant. There's been a guy in a truck parked outside since last night. Haven't seen his face. Just sits there. I told Liam to leave the laptop alone. Put it in a locked case. Hide it. Burn it if he had to. I wasn't going to lose him over this. That night, I stayed at a cheap motel under a fake name. I'd already moved some of the files to an encrypted USB, set up automatic backups to go to a secure cloud folder. If I disappeared, I wanted the files to go public. I used a Dead Man Switch app. Every 12 hours, I had to check in or it'd send everything to a journalist contact I'd met online. I didn't know who I could trust anymore. Cops were out. Rachel and Tom were obviously dangerous. My mom was a mess. Liam was in danger. I was alone, but I still had one lead left. Tom's ex-partner. The guy from that old missing person case. The one marked closed. According to the file, he had a sister. I did some digging, found a name, an address. Small town 2 hours away. I made the drive the next day. Knocked on her door. She was older, probably in her 60s. Took one look at me and said, "You look like your father." I froze. "You knew my dad?" She nodded slowly. "Back when he was alive." "Sure. Before everything went bad." I told her I was trying to find out what happened to her brother. That I found some files. That my stepdad, Tom, used to be his partner. She let me in. We sat in her kitchen, no lights, just the sun through faded curtains. She poured coffee like it was an old ritual. Then she told me the story. Her brother, Detective Michael Graves, had been investigating an internal corruption ring. Cops were laundering cartel money through fake seizures and feeding it back into businesses. Banks were involved. My dad's bank. Turns out my dad wasn't just a banker. He was an internal auditor. And he'd found irregularities. Started connecting the dots. Her brother and my dad started talking. That's when both of them started getting threats. First it was vague. Dead animals on the porch. Slash marks on car tires. Then more direct, someone broke into my dad's office. Her brother got pulled off cases. Told to retire early. They didn't stop. They kept digging. 2 months later, my dad died in a car crash. 3 weeks after that, her brother went missing. No one was ever charged. Tom was transferred to another department and eventually retired. I always knew he was involved, she said. Your stepdad? He was the only one who came out clean. I asked her why she never said anything. She said she tried, but no one would listen. Everyone who mattered either worked with Tom or owed him favors. They buried it, she said. They buried all of it. That was when I realized something. I wasn't just a loose end. I was my dad's unfinished business. His backup plan. That's why they planted Rachel. That's why Tom married my mom. They wanted to keep an eye on me. Make sure I didn't go looking. But I had looked. And now it was too late to stop. When I got back to the motel that night, the door was cracked open. Lights off. Everything inside. Torn apart. Drawers emptied. Mattress flipped. My backup hard drive? Gone. But they missed something. The encrypted USB in my jacket pocket. And one more thing. They left a burner phone on my bed. I stared at it for a full minute before picking it up. It buzzed once. No caller ID. I answered. A voice said, "Drop it, or you'll disappear like your father did." Then the line went dead. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating right. I had eye bags so deep I looked like a ghost. But for the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid. I was pissed. They wanted me to back off. Disappear. Play the victim. Just like my dad. Just like Graves. But they didn't realize one thing. I wasn't wired like him. I wasn't going to fight them head on. I didn't have a badge or a network of insiders. But what I did have was their secrets, their words, their voices, their receipts. So I came up with a plan. Simple, risky, but clean. I'd bait them into confirming everything. Then I'd leak it in a way they couldn't stop. Step 1 was Rachel. I hadn't talked to her since the coffee shop, but I knew she was watching me. Or someone was. The break-in, the car out front, the message on the burner. It was too coordinated to be anything else. I figured she'd still have eyes on my apartment. So I made it easy. I sent her a message. Just one line. "You win. Let's talk." She responded in under 5 minutes. We agreed to meet in a quiet little bar just outside of town. Somewhere with no cameras, no curious ears. I picked a spot where the bartender knew me. A guy I used to play pickup ball with. I gave him a heads up that I needed a private booth and no interruptions. I wired myself up with a mic. Nothing fancy. Just a recording app running on a spare phone in my jacket, synced to cloud backup. I had a second one hidden under the table, just in case. She showed up in black. No smile. No hello. Just slid into the booth across from me like we were two spies meeting in neutral territory. "You said you wanted to talk," she said. "Talk." I leaned in. "I know everything, Rachel." She didn't blink. "Do you?" "I know about the files. The case. The money. My dad. Your job. Tom's connection to Graves. I know you were in contact before I ever met you. I know you were sent to get close to me. And I know what you were supposed to do when you were done." She just sat there, staring at me like I was something pitiful. "You shouldn't have gone digging," she said quietly. "You weren't supposed to get hurt." That sentence, "weren't supposed to get hurt," that was her slip. The moment she admitted it was real. Was it ever real? I asked. "What? You and me? Anything? At all?" She didn't answer right away. Just tilted her head, like she was thinking hard about how honest to be. Then she said, "I liked you." That was the problem. That answer hit me harder than any slap. Because it was probably true. And it meant nothing. I pushed further. I needed confirmation. What were you trying to find? What did Tom want from my dad's files? That made her lean back. "Jason, this isn't a game. You think you can just expose this and walk away? You have no idea who's involved." "I know enough," I said. "Enough to make them sweat. Then you know what they've done. What they'll do to protect it." She looked me dead in the eye. "You think your dad was the only one who died for this?" She started listing names. People I'd never heard of. Bank managers. Cops. Investigators. All of them gone. Mysterious disappearances. Suicides. Accidents. Then she leaned in, almost whispering. "You're still breathing because I asked them to wait. But that won't last." And just like that, she slid out of the booth and left. Did I get everything I needed? No. But I got enough. Enough to expose the operation. Enough to tie names to events. Enough to make the right person panic. So I moved to step 2. I called up my journalist contact, a guy I knew from college who worked at an independent media outlet, one of the few people who still believed in publishing dangerous stories. I sent him encrypted copies of everything I had, the files from my dad's laptop, the audio recordings of Rachel, the photos, the texts, even the scanned police report from Graves' file. He called me 2 hours later. "Jesus, man, do you know what this is?" "Yeah," I said. "That's why I'm sending it to you." "I can't run this raw," he said. "But if I verify just half of it, it's going on the front page." I told him to do what he had to do. I gave him one more condition. If I went offline for more than 24 hours, he'd publish everything. No names redacted. No filters. He agreed. And then I did something stupid. I went home. I don't know why. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I wanted to feel normal for 1 second. I just wanted a hot shower, a real bed, and 10 minutes of silence. I got maybe 5. The second I walked in, I felt it. The shift in the air. The front door was unlocked. The lights were on. And someone was behind me. A hand grabbed the back of my neck. I tried to spin, but they were fast. I caught a glimpse, Tom. His face calm. Dead calm. "Should have listened," he muttered. Then something sharp pressed into my arm. And everything went black. When I woke up, my mouth tasted like metal. My hands were tied behind my back. My head was pounding like someone had stuffed a drum inside it and kicked the walls. There was duct tape across my mouth. The air was stale, smelled like oil, rust, and old water. It took me a minute to realize where I was. A basement. Somewhere remote. Somewhere quiet. And then the footsteps came. 2 sets. One heavy. One light. Tom appeared first, like he was walking into his office on a regular Tuesday. No mask. No hood. He wanted me to know it was him. Rachel followed a few seconds later. Dressed in all black, arms crossed. No sign of guilt. No emotion. Tom looked down at me and smiled. Actually smiled. Like this was some full-circle moment for him. "You were always too smart for your own good," he said. "Just like your father." He sat on a metal chair across from me and started talking like we were old friends catching up. "Your dad thought he could outmaneuver us too. Thought if he hid the evidence and left it with you, we'd never find it." He shook his head. "Should have burned it. Should have burned you too." He stood up, walked a slow circle around me. The kind of slow, theatrical pacing that made your blood go cold. "I didn't want it to come to this," he said. "But here we are." I was trying to stay calm, but inside I was spiraling. Not because of fear. That had burned out 2 chapters ago. No, this was rage. Controlled, focused rage. Because what they didn't know was that I'd already pulled the trigger. While they were standing there, patting themselves on the back, every file, every audio recording, every dirty secret was sitting in the inbox of a journalist prepping a full release. The timer had already started. And the best part? They'd given me one final gift. They recorded themselves. The mic in my jacket, the same one I'd used for the meeting with Rachel, it was still running. Streaming straight to my cloud backup through a hidden app. Tom just confessed to everything. On tape. Rachel stepped forward. She crouched in front of me, stared me down. "I told them you weren't like him," she whispered. "That you didn't have it in you. That you'd fold." I glared at her. She stood up, disgusted. I was wrong. They left the room after that. Locked the door behind them. I sat in that chair for what felt like an hour, counting my breaths, thinking about my dad, thinking about Liam, thinking about every time I ignored my gut. Then the door creaked open again. But this time, it wasn't Tom or Rachel. It was Liam. He looked like hell, sweating, pale. He walked straight over, knife in hand, and started cutting the tape off my wrists. "You tripped the dead man switch," he said. "Your phone didn't check in. It sent everything." My heart nearly stopped. "They're everywhere," he said. "It's blowing up online. Reddit, X, YouTube." That journalist dropped the story first. He even tagged the FBI. We didn't wait. We ran. By the time we got out, the news had already gone wide. Former cop implicated in decade-old cover-up. Whistleblower son escapes alleged murder attempt. Financial scandal tied to missing bank official. Names, photos, documents, audio, all of it. Everything I had, everything my dad died trying to preserve, it was out in the world. And just like that, the entire thing cracked open. The FBI reopened the Graves case within 2 days. Rachel went on the run, last spotted heading toward Mexico. Tom, he tried to disappear. He didn't make it far. They caught him in a rest stop in Arizona. Armed. Delusional. Wearing a disguise like something out of a bad movie. They say he didn't even try to resist. I didn't go home. I changed my name, disappeared into a quiet life with no paper trail. Liam too. We both knew there might still be people out there who weren't happy with what we'd done. But I wasn't afraid anymore. For the first time since this started, I felt free. I still have the burner phone. The one they left on my bed. I keep it in a box. Turned off. Wrapped in a cloth. Buried under old clothes in the back of a closet. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if someone else is going to pick it up. If there's another Jason out there. Someone being watched. Played. Used. Someone who hasn't found the second phone yet. But if they do, I hope they're smarter than me. I hope they move faster. And I hope to God they don't wait until it's almost too late.